Hello, welcome to the podcast. Who am I? I'm Stephen.
And I'm William.
And this is episode 2.
We're back.
Welcome. Yeah, welcome. Last week went really well. Sorry, keep it again. Last podcast was really fun. We had a really good time just chatting away. You've been working hard on all the editing and stuff, so that's much appreciated.
Yeah, that was an interesting process. I got to learn about video editing, uploading, publishing, and pretty soon I will have the transcript ready to put on the webpage. And then hopefully our pages will become more searchable that way. Also, I really want us to make a trailer. We need to collect some material for that. It could just be cutouts from the show.
Yeah.
Maybe funny moments. Maybe dropping my phone could be part of it. Must be useful for something, right? So
show how it is trying to organize a podcast from scratch and what things can go wrong.
Exactly, yeah. But there's no time pressure. It just takes however long it takes.
It does. That's it.
Yeah. But it'll become a routine and go quicker. So I look forward to that.
Yes, once we get into the habit a bit better.
Okay. Today, my suggestion for a topic of discussion is self-awareness. For example, you can look at it from a perspective of artificial intelligence or robotics, if you will. How are humans different from robots? I really love reading Isaac Asimov. He's my favorite author, and he is known for writing lots and lots about robots. He is, in my mind, similar to Tolkien. Whereas Tolkien built this whole planet, continent, with lots of different creatures, languages, scripts, fauna, flora. Asimov created a galaxy in the future, and it's so far in the future that Earth has become a myth, this one planet where human life started. And in some of the stories, people try to find out where it was by looking into really old texts. But anyway, that's a tangent. You can tell I just love Asimov.
You go ahead, exactly. Yeah, you go ahead, and because again, like I haven't read as much Asimov as I would like. So hearing what it's about actually from you it'll be educational for me, and I'm sure for the readers as well.
Which books or movies are you familiar with?
So I have. Oh, it's gonna be difficult because my memory is so bad. I haven't. The most famous one, I haven't read much of that one. The
Foundation series.
Yeah, Foundation series. I jumped into one. This is probably should have done some research first to try and
Empire series, Robot series.
It might have been the Robot series.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the most known one, or next to Empire, next to Foundation at least.
I just remember it being really good. I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, there are lots of short stories in one compilation, and the movies come from that series, I, Robot and the Bicentennial Man. Yeah, and so in those movies and many of his books, he deals, or the main person deals with questions like, is this a robot? Similar to that film with Harrison Ford.
Blade Runner.
Yeah, where he thinks he has a test to know whether someone is human or a robot. And you find out just how tricky that can be. And so this is a popular topic in sci-fi, one of the reasons I love sci-fi. And it's not just a computer science question, but also a philosophy question.
Yeah, it's a humanity question.
Humanity?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a humanity question, isn't it?
Right. It's interesting that humans want to create machines in their own image, first of all. Why do machines have to be humanoid? Our shape is really useful for lots of things, but not all things. And so there are machines in other shapes as well, obviously. But it's interesting how much we want machines to be like ourselves. And so in some of these stories, by Asimov, he allows, or he writes, that his machines, his robots, become so much like humans that the question gets more and more difficult. What's the difference? And in one of them, a robot man falls in love with a human woman and tries to become more and more human, a bit like Data in Star Trek, except that he really succeeds. His maker is really helpful, keeps updating his biology, I want to say, his anatomy, there you go.
Yeah.
And in the end, there is no more significant difference. I won't spoil the beginning, the end really, like what was the very last thing that he needed to change to become human. But the Bicentennial Man was granted human status, a civilian of humanity, or citizen of humanity. And so that's really interesting. What does it take?
Yeah.
And since they're fiction, I don't know how close they are to reality, but
Yeah.
we are certainly going in a similar direction of making machines more and more similar to humans.
It seems to be the peak goal. Like, okay, we can make computers, we can make machines, but the goal by science and computing and all that seems to be to make a machine that can be a human, that can be classed as human in nature, human in being, and human in looks. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know why exactly that actually is. Why we so strongly desire
A
to
lot
hit
of
that peak.
a lot of scientific research is not just about analyzing and understanding aspects of nature, but then also recreating it. Okay. Um, and simulating it. And then you compare it with nature and see how close you can get. So
Okay.
I am in natural language processing, for example, and there we try to understand language, which you could say is nature. We use it every day, but still we don't know how it works. You get taught grammar in school, but that's very far from the actual thing, language. It's just a very basic approach, usually having more to do with spelling and writing, which is not the most natural part of natural language. You could argue it's artificial, and well, for one, you can even tell that it's different from how we speak because it's something that government can change when they introduce writing reform, for example, and how you speak cannot be changed by institutions. Also, thousands of years ago, I don't know how long ago, there were tons of languages without any scripts. I believe there still are some. And so they just evolve without any government, just in anarchy. And that's the more natural part of language. Anyway, why was I getting into this? Oh yeah, we don't understand how language works. We just try. We make some language technology that comes close and is pretty useful. We use it every day, for example, in search engines. But we still cannot reproduce exactly what goes on in our brain. And I kind of like the mystery. The thing that makes us different from robots is not knowing how we really work. But on the other side, I also enjoy discovering the knowledge about how we work.
Yeah.
And that makes us more self-aware as well.
Yeah, it's a good mirror to hold up to, again, the self-discovery of who am I and how that can be explored, again, through the robot, I guess, question that you've just pretty much raised. Again, we mentioned the Matrix last time. You've mentioned Asimov. There's one recently called Ex Machina.
Oh, the movie you mean?
Yeah, the film.
Because the book has been around. I just haven't gotten around to read it.
Cool. I didn't realize it was based on the book. I thought it was just a film.
Or Deus Ex Machina. It's probably a different thing, right?
Yeah, Deus Ex Machina is obviously the phrase. I don't know if that is a book that
It is,
they,
yeah.
they've used to make the film. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I assume the film was just maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea.
I'll have to look that up, yeah.
Yeah,
Deus Ex Machina means the god out of the machine.
yeah,
And Ex Machina then is just out of the machine.
yeah,
So was
yeah.
there, did you see it? Was something
Oh yeah.
creative, something unexpected coming out of a machine?
Well, it's basically just the film itself discusses what we're discussing. Is
Hmm.
the premise is young man wins a competition of software encoding, goes to a secret place where he wins a prize to spend a week with the boss of this big company, and then he has to. And that's what he thinks he's won, is just being able to spend a week with him. But actually, he's now um, going to do the Turing test, which is the test to try and can AI um, be classed as human, as consciousness, and that's the film. The film goes into all that, and again,
Mhm.
won't talk any more about that in terms of what the plot is and stuff, because it's worth
Okay.
watching.
Yeah.
But it's just about the dude's the young adult, his I guess discovery through all that.
Cool. Yeah. The Turing test is still around. I mean, Turing has been dead for over 50 years, but wait, Turing lived during the Second World War, so I'm not sure when exactly he died, but there was an anniversary a couple of years ago, maybe for his birth. Anyway, the Turing test, I believe, has prize money on it,
Oh wow, that
and
would make
it's
sense. That would
yeah,
make sense.
if you can fool someone, well, if a machine can fool someone or you know act so well like a human that you cannot tell them apart. And that doesn't go into looks. It's basically about language and reasoning,
Yeah, yeah,
but we're not there yet.
no.
Yeah, it's exciting to see progress in that area, but making progress in technology doesn't mean that we're making progress in understanding how our own faculty fully works. Philosophers have discussed this question for a long time. They call an entity that comes really close to being and behaving like a human in every way, but is not human. They call that a zombie.
Okay.
That's a real philosophical term.
Yeah,
It's not slang, at least not anymore.
yeah.
So a zombie um, would pass the Turing test, but the difference is it does not have the subjective conscious experience that humans do. And this is something really hard to pin down and talk about, even for philosophers, I believe, because it's controversial. People have very different views on consciousness and free will, for that matter. It ties in closely, I believe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, are we really alive in the sense that we see? I can't even put it into words, but
It's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
it reminds me of that film with Johnny Depp and Morgan Freeman, where the machine asks Morgan Freeman, or no, first Morgan Freeman asks the machine, "Can you prove that you're self-aware?" And the machine says, "Can you?" It's called Transcendence. It's great.
Okay.
It came
Okay.
out about 5 years ago.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that one.
It's great. Yeah, Johnny Depp dies, and so he uploads his consciousness into a computer just before. He
Oh
has
wait, maybe.
a wife who's also a genius, and she helps
Yeah.
him, and she helps him stay alive because humanity is getting really critical and believes
Yeah.
he will be their destruction. And then you have to wait to find out if that really happens,
Yeah.
or if it can be thwarted, or if it really is a danger, and so on. So it's great.
That's really funny because I remember seeing that come out in terms of like the trailers and stuff, and being like, oh, I want to see that, and then being like, okay, I'll watch it when it comes out, like
Mm.
DVD or whatever, and then just forgot about it.
Yeah,
Completely have no remembrance of it at all. Wow. until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, if you're not constantly in touch with cinema, you
See,
like
I tend to be. I tend to be kind of on the ball with these things because I love, you know, how much I love like any media that tells a story. Medium that tells a story. But do you think, I mean, personally, do you think that we, in the next, or how long do you think will take? Because I think, being honest, I think it will happen. I personally, maybe you're different.
You mean conscious machines?
Yeah.
I have a different view. I really enjoy the Australian philosopher David Chalmers on this topic, and I watched some of the interviews with him, and I can't say for certain, obviously, but I like how he says that no matter how complex machines get, no matter how many artificial neurons you put together in a network, you will never achieve the same kind of consciousness that humans experience. So he makes a hard difference, a strict difference between artificial intelligence and, I guess, natural intelligence. And
Well,
so
the question there is because we're machine in biology, like we have electrical currents running through us.
That's
so
right.
ultimately, we'll just become full circle, won't we? We'll get to the point where through machine and biology, we just combine the two to be able to make humans. Is that not?
That's a popular view. That's right. I'm glad you raised that and not just go along with what I'm saying. Because yes, a lot of people believe that we are just a biological machine.
Okay. Because I don't know what I personally believe, but I'm just throwing in different viewpoints.
No, it's important that we mention, especially the questions that a lot of people will have, and this is a common question. What's the name of the English physicist who died recently? Hawking. Stephen Hawking. I read it.
Away? Wow.
Sorry? Yes, he did a few years ago.
Oh my goodness, this is hilarious. I'm gonna just let this up because
it's just
this happens a lot with me.
Information. I miss a lot of stuff too, but
yeah, wow, March, yeah, like again with my health stuff, my memory and that, it's I would have the time I would have obviously.
You think he was just on the Big Bang Theory a few years ago? He can't be gone.
And was like, okay, I must have obviously I would have seen it. I would have known that he had passed away again because of health stuff. My memory, it's just gone, and
information overload. You can't know everything.
I don't know what it is with my stupid health, like ability to retain memory at the moment.
Are you saying you knew at one point and forgot?
Yeah. Well, I would have heard it on. It would have been all over Facebook and whatever else in the news, so I would have known. But the problem gets where you tell me, you said he died, and I'm like, I can't remember. Like, I'm like, okay, that sounds right, but there's no grounding in my brain where I can go. There's no like point reference where I can go, I remember hearing it at that point. So I question the reality of it just for myself, knowing you're right, but not having any context for myself.
That sounds confusing.
Oh, it can be. It can be really difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's only certain things. It's not. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But anyway, off topic.
I mentioned Stephen Hawking because he was very popular. He was stubborn, but his views had a big influence on people. Anyway, he said every time he made a new discovery, or science in general made a new discovery, he felt confirmed, so that his view became more likely to be true, which is that we are just matter in action, and that there's nothing immaterial behind it. He likes to say at the end of an explanation, and since we know now how this works, there is no more need for God. Because, as you know, one reason that religion is popular is whenever people hit a wall with their explainability, with their knowledge on a topic, they like to say, and Everything beyond that is up to God.
Yeah.
Since our brains are so, what's the word, finite, and God's isn't, this is something that he can understand, but we can't. And I think that's true in a sense, but I like to think that God can tell us everything, so therefore nothing is really inaccessible. It just might not be in our control. We cannot always force progress or knowledge.
It's a way of just saying etc., or and so on and so forth. We have got to this point of knowledge. That's as far as we can go at a specific period of time.
Yeah.
And that's to be able to understand that we can't understand it yet. We can't
Exactly.
just admit.
How can we know what we cannot know?
Yeah, we can't just admit and go, okay, well, sometimes ignorance is bliss, and we'll get there at some point. But right now, we don't. We don't. Right. It's like there has to be an answer. Why can't you just put a ... and just we'll get there eventually? Give us time.
Yeah.
You know,
a black swan might come along, and it wouldn't be a black swan if you expected it. So there are emergent phenomena like that, where knowledge suddenly makes a leap.
Yeah.
But I forgot how we got onto the topic.
Stephen Hawking's at the end of his statements.
Yeah.
He talks about.
So when scientists or people making discoveries, or even people catching up on already existing knowledge, and knowledge that is in the human society already, when they catch up, and this happens to me too, I start noticing the patterns in nature, and I say, wow, this explanation is really good. It explains this and this and answers this question I always had. And you get so confident that you start believing this can explain everything, or it'll just be another 5 to 10 years until we can explain everything. And that is not advisable, not careful.
I get very confused by the whole looking for the one question that answers everything. Yeah. I find it very ignorant, and again, it's just me being an ignorant human being with not much knowledge of anything really. But I find it very strange because at any given point, something can prove a situation, right. And then time goes by, something happens which contradicts that. It doesn't change the other thing. It doesn't change that at that point proved that was a certain way. Again, it's proof. It's not just a theory.
Yeah.
But life is contradictory. It's paradoxical. There's a June quote. I won't go into it. But it talks about how paradox is just an entertaining thing. It's people that get wound up in paradox need to chill out. That's a Stephen way of interpreting the quote, because actually paradox is just part of existence.
Yeah.
And so and contradiction. Why do we need to suddenly say that was wrong, and then now this is right? We have an obsession with that, I think, as a species.
Yeah. I think the more humble scientists say that scientific discoveries are really just theories, and you can never prove that they're true. You can just show that they're true in certain contexts, in certain experiments, and they are assumed to be true until they're disproven. So every theory is falsifiable, but not really provable, because you would need to test it in every possible situation, and we don't even know how to do that. You would need to know everything about everything to have absolute certainty about something to be true. So the theory doesn't just mean some discovery that a scientist formulated, but also something, like most people use the word, something not certain.
Yeah. And I guess linking it back to the robotic side of things, where that's what we're exploring as humanity, is projecting our desire to discover who we are as beings by creation, because that's pretty much how a lot of us do it, and creating a robot that reflects ourselves is a way to explore ourselves, because you're creating something that is like you or like us as a species. Because you'd have to, oh my gosh, you'd have to do it again. I don't do robotics, but you'd have to again go through so much data, so much. You have to understand so much philosophy, so much emotions. You have to understand. Yeah, just it hurts my head trying to think about it. To then be able to create something like that that does it by itself.
So when you do create something that behaves similarly to you or to a human in general, then I think the next step is that you believe that what you did to make this machine the way it is the same that made you who you are. I remember when this blew my mind the first time when I sat in a lecture about logic in computer science, and I realized that the logical formulas that we're writing down, explaining something mathematical, just not as complex as like something about human behavior, but just something in math, something abstract. I thought, okay, this describes the behavior, but at the same time, people believe that this is the behavior, that this is what generates the behavior in the first place. So, but I believe that there's still a step in between, and that they might just seem the same, but they don't have to be the same. Does that make sense? When I say, oh, you seem to drink orange juice every second day, and I watch you say this is with someone I live with, so that I can notice this really every day. And then, so I set up this rule. I can write it down mathematically if I want to. Every second day, this person drinks orange juice, and the other days they don't. But usually you don't have to say that. Anyway, now, does the person do that because they have a rule written somewhere inside of their brain that is what they do? Or is it that they drink orange juice every time they feel sad, and that's just how they deal with it? And for some totally different reason, they feel sad. It's just a coincidence that they feel sad every second day. So the rule is actually something totally different, but the outcome is the same.
Where did the rule come from? It's like, what is it wired into our being? Is it a consequence of variables throughout the past of their existence? So it wasn't necessarily wired in, again, environment type factors that can change at any given point in life. Or is it, yeah, as you say, they've consciously decided, okay, I'm going to have it every other day because that's the rule I'm going to stick to. Yeah. So it's to me, I mean, it's more, but to me, it's like three different things going on there.
Okay, so I already forgot the first two. So tell me again. Environmental factors?
Well, first one is hardwired into the system.
Okay.
So DNA, genetics, whatever, coded, who knows, that there is something in there that was going to make them always get to the point where they were going to have orange juice every second day. Or they go through life and just things happen, environment, external factors. Maybe, like you say, maybe their mum used to do it every second day. Who knows? Like something random. They decided that they. That's more of something else. Yeah, environmental.
And the third one was conscious choice.
Conscious choice. That kind of crossed over there a little bit from environmental conscious choice. My example.
Yeah, they're not totally clearly divisible.
Well, they'll come together. I'm trying to divide something that isn't actually, I'm trying to separate it out so I can understand that there's three different points, but actually they all intertwine, whatever.
No, it is really useful though. The first 2 points are very similar to the nature versus nurture debate.
Yeah, that's the obvious one. Yeah.
And the third one is relevant for our discussion about consciousness and free will. Because certain people, a lot of people believe that conscious decision-making is just an epiphenomenon. It's just something that we tell ourselves exists, but actually it's just an illusion, and everything we do is predictable, or what's the other word? Determined, so that our behavior is deterministic, and machines are deterministic, at least the way they are right now. You say one day they might not be, and that's interesting. But yeah, it's really difficult to know how I make decisions. You could say you can reduce a lot of what I do back to something else in the past, like the way I was raised,
Yeah.
the things you already mentioned, or just how I work. And I do a lot of things that, without consciously knowing that I'm doing them. Like I heard once that you are attracted to someone if when you kiss, your saliva chemically harmonizes, or when you, or just pheromones that you
Yeah.
give off. You can like them about someone else, and then you're attracted to them. So there are all these factors that you don't know are working on you, and they influence your decision making. So things like that certainly show that there is truth to this unconscious decision making. But does it mean that everything works that way? I think that would be too far reaching. And again, extrapolating from the knowledge you do have to, oh, this is how everything works.
Yeah. Was I always find it important not to jump to absolutes. Again, it's
Right.
one of the things I've learned from June, where you say this is how it is.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, this is how I maybe believe it is, but there's 100 different factors that I'm willing to absorb, listen to take on board, that could also be right, or like could be part of the equation. Again, right and wrong are very absolute terms. Trying to express the variation of
Right.
the situation is difficult.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of arrogance or humility.
Yeah.
At least once you have reached a point where you become aware that you're aware.
Yeah.
That's critical too. So if you think about children, they do a lot of things out of
Impulse.
necessity, just automatically, basically. But something will change, and it's a process. I don't know if it can happen all of a sudden, but when they become aware how their decision making works and that they can actually change what they want to do.
Well, isn't the test a sweet test? Like you put a child
Uh-huh.
um,
Yes.
honestly at a table, and you give them a sweet in front of them, and you say, if you wait 10 minutes, you get 2 sweets.
Uh-huh.
And the child sits there, and most children just eat the one sweet because they feel the necessity just to, like, this is good now, I will have it.
Is it important for the test that you leave the room?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
And they're on their own with the sweet?
Yeah, no, sweet, yeah. And I think it's, again, it does make different things, but I think, again, it shows what you just said, where you learn a point where you can override the conscious impulse to eat the good thing, or sugary, yummy thing, and realize you get something better if you wait, or something. There's a positive outcome if you just wait.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think that's what a lot of choices are. I think a lot of choices are, again, it's action or reaction. It's something happens to you and you automatically respond. It's putting up a wall, it's my opinion, that free will is where you're able to put up a wall and go, okay, just pause for 5 seconds and do a bit of conscious like
pondering,
choice making, yeah, to then make the decision, to then do what you want to do. Because again, it's not necessarily about what is right or wrong, but it's what you as an individual want to do in that situation.
Right.
Because you might want to go and punch the person. Let's again, example here is if you're in an argument or something, and your impulse is, let's say, fight, again, fight or flight, and in the past, let's say you've just done it out of impulse, you've hit the person, and then you've got in trouble or whatever, or you've not. If you can get to the point where you can go, no, I don't want to hit the person, walk away, or yes, I do want to do it, and then still do it, that shows a conscious choice-making situation. Again, in my sort of view, naive little view.
I think that's a very good perspective for this topic. It's easy for us to look at children and say, oh, they've just taken a step to another level of consciousness. And then it helps when I remind myself that I'm not that different from children.
No.
I've made certain changes, but I can still make lots and lots of changes. So I'm just on one of the many steps on this staircase towards higher and higher consciousness, you could say. I also love that you use the word respond. Like, I can respond to the situation I'm in impulsively, or I can just react without knowing why or how, or I can choose how to respond. And the word responsibility comes from respond, because I have the ability to respond. I am responsible. And so that is a power that you can gain. Not sure how exactly the process works, but you can certainly decide to be open for it. And then with experience and just trying over and over, you can gain a higher level of responsibility, of awareness. And I think that's a very valuable thing to work on.
Definitely. On the flip side, just to throw a contradictory discussion out there, is you can spend too long thinking and worrying about things. Like, again, you can overanalyze over a lot of my anxiety and depression problems have come from that. They've come from just sitting there and thinking too much about a situation and not just letting my own impulses do the thing. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, is this the right way? Is this the wrong way? In the past, now I just go to that core thing of, what do I want? What makes me happy? And then I just do it. And if it goes wrong or seems to go wrong, I'm like, meh, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's what I wanted to do. I tried it. I have that integrity and that happiness. But I did it. No matter what happens what goes wrong, I'm like, wow, yeah, go me. I had the consciousness to just do what I thought would help me be happy. And
so the non-useful thoughts, do they go in circles? Is that what you're talking about?
They can do, yeah.
Yeah, you try to analyze and be all cognizant, but it never leads anywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
But
that's again that's where children come in. Your example of humility links back to kids, because you're showing you're humble by looking at them as an example. Because we're not much different from them. We are not. Like, we think as adults, we think we've suddenly become this higher being that knows the universe and knows so much more than children. But children just they are such prime examples of so many different things, and fun and play. I think we talked about it last time, or we talked about it before, where it was last time. Being able to play is a great way to learn. Just having fun, and not overthinking things.
CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy, and the cognitive therapy part is the self-analyzing, trying to figure out what's going on, thinking about your own thoughts and seeing how you can change those patterns to help. But the behavioral part is what you were just talking about. At least I believe that's what behavioral therapy is about. How you just need to do something sometimes. Just act out what you believe to be right or what you believe to be healthy in the moment, without knowing it in theory, in your brain. And both are necessary for mental health, for health in general.
Yeah, because a lot of it's to do with fear. A lot of it's to do with the fear of getting it wrong, or making a fool of ourselves, or whatever the reasons, that we prefer just to think about it and go through it in our brains. And again, in our brains, we often it lies to us. It tells us things that are not, like, a social situation is going to be scary or whatever. And in many ways, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, where because you think it's scary, your brain releases the biological side of things, like the anxiety, when actually if you just went and did it, didn't think about it, you'd be like, okay, cool, this was fun, or whatever else, because that's what I got stuck in way back. But again, I keep trying to refer this back to the original sort of questions about robotics. Do you think that they could make a machine, I guess, express what we're expressing? Like, have they done that yet? Like, because you know more about these things than I do. So expressing awareness of fear, awareness of fun through learning.
Yeah. Let me give you a high-level answer that doesn't go into so much detail. The first thing that jumps to my mind is Kurt Gödel. Have you heard of him? He was a mathematician in the 30s. Okay. At least that's when he was. He made his huge contributions, and he was a party pooper.
I have to make that comment because I had water in my mouth and it went everywhere.
No, I like to call him that because people at the beginning of the 20th century were so excited about all these new discoveries about logic. So, you know, we're excited about technological advances in the last few decades, but they were excited about the theoretical advances, about understanding math and logic better, and what you can write down on paper about nature. So you see the link, yeah? You first need to understand these things in theory before you can recreate them.
Oh, definitely.
David Hilbert, at the turn of the century, came up with, I don't know, 15 problems or so that he formulated for scientists in the 20th century. And he said, if you have nothing to work on, try one of these. And they were really difficult problems. And you can look on Wikipedia, which of them have been solved, which of them have been solved partially. Sorry?
I've heard of those, I think.
You've heard of them? Oh, good, good.
I think so.
And I think maybe a third of them are solved, and that's about it. But one of them was, can you describe everything that happens in the universe mathematically? And people believed, yes, they were very optimistic about this problem. And then Kurt Gödel came along and he showed that no. And he didn't have to go through every possible situation and show and find one that doesn't work. He showed that mathematics in itself is incomplete. It doesn't mean it's wrong or useless. It just means it has its limitations. For example, when you, how can I put this? When you create a formula, when you write down a formula that is trying to express something about itself, and this is similar to a machine trying to think about itself. Yeah, it's analogous. In theory, it's the same. When you try to do that, it is possible, but only to a certain extent, because there are certain formulas, mathematical formulas, that will express something, and you can derive it to be true from basic truths. I'll give you an example of some of the logical steps that you can make in mathematics. Modus ponens is a rule that is when you have two rules, one of them says if A then B, and the second one says A, which means A is true, and the first one says if A is true then B must be true. Yeah, if you combine the two, if you say that both are true, then you can know as a consequence that B is true. Yeah, you get that?
I think so, yeah.
We know that A is true, and we know that if A is true, then B is true. If you combine the two, you get B.
Okay.
Or B is true. So that's one basic rule that most scientists can agree on. In most situations, it holds true. You can come up with some quirky situations where it doesn't, but let's stay in the common sense area. And so you have a set of these, maybe a dozen, and you can express infinitely many very complex things about nature or any mathematical system, and the logic will be consistent, so that if X is true, then its negation must be false, right? If I say the sun is shining, and it is, then the sentence the sun is not shining must be false.
False. Okay.
But with the mathematical logic that we have, that we're using right now, the standard arithmetics, you can derive a sentence. The system will predict that the sentence is true and that its negation is true.
Yeah.
So I don't remember how. I've looked at the proof once. It's complicated, but Kurt Gödel came up with this in the 30s and showed that the mathematical system has been very useful, but it has its limitations because obviously something and its negation is cannot always be true at the same time. And so that shows that no, the mathematical system we're using right now is not able to cover everything. We cannot express everything with it. And that, to me, is fundamentally important because it shows that there are still things outside of the very system, the language, the mode of thinking that we use to make sense of nature, our environment, and ourselves. So I hope that you can see the connection between that discovery and your question about self-conscious machines. As long as we build machines based on the mathematics we use right now, I believe that they will at least be limited.
Okay.
You might be able to create zombies.
Well, we're limited as well, so I guess our own limitation, yeah, creates the limited machine.
Yeah.
Therefore, we need to, improve our own limitations to be able to create.
The last thing we said was humans are limited in our thinking, in our scientific methods. And then you said that then it's no surprise that the machines that we create are also limited.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. Since I believe you need to be at a higher level than the thing you create. Because basically you need to be able to create everything it does. You need to be able to understand everything it does. So yeah.
Interesting point, because again, creation often happens through accident, I guess, like just random chaos, I guess. Like, I don't think people realize exactly what they're doing when they split the atom. I mean, maybe they did. I don't know, wasn't there? But is it something they planned for? Like, did they know exactly how to do it?
But there are examples like what you're talking about, like penicillin was discovered accidentally.
Yeah. So leaps in technology can just that's where all the, I guess, disaster films come from, where it's like, do we jump forward in robotics to the point where we accidentally create something that is beyond us?
Yeah.
And then
we should definitely discuss that another time.
I think we could part two. I think this is a good ongoing discussion that could quite easily take up another session.
Of course, yeah.
So if you want to,
some people call this topic AI safety. Like Elon Musk is a big proponent of being more careful and not just going for every idea you have, especially people do that when there are economic incentives behind it. He had a fight, you could say, a debate with Mark Zuckerberg on Twitter once, where they went back and forth. What is safe to do? When should you be more careful and not care so much about all the money that you could make just because you were the first to try this new approach? Yeah, it's a big topic.
It is. It really is. Have you felt like you've discussed a lot of what you wanted to in this session?
Yeah. Obviously, it's evolved. It evolved organically, just like you predicted. And I didn't expect to go into mental health or some of the history of mathematics, but it's all related, obviously. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way it's gone, and we could spend another hour on it, which would definitely make another episode.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Good.
Cool.
What do
So
you think about the idea of sometime in the future also getting on someone else to speak with us or with one of us about a topic?
yeah, I'm always, like, I mean, as we just kind of just talked about limitations, like it's always good to get another viewpoint. It'd be nice. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could link up, 7 billion people and get all our different perspectives together? But again, limitations. So having someone else that has a perspective and knowledge and is
Yeah,
always good fun. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be an expert, just another
No,
voice
yeah,
to
just
bring some
another perspective.
diversity. So yeah,
Yeah. Again, we're not exactly experts.
yeah.
So, well, you are in many things.
Well, I've studied
Um,
certain things, and you could tell I'm really excited to talk about them.
yeah.
And I'm happy to have this outlet, this way to express them.
I like listening to them. Like I've always in our previous discussions over the last number of years.
Hmm.
Like I've really enjoyed because we're very different in our knowledge base, I guess. Because I guess that's what happens as humans. But just you have such an incredible understanding of, again, the coding, computing, language, and how it relates to human, like to us, and like you do a very good job of humanizing it all. Because a lot of times I separate myself from that kind of stuff because to me it feels so foreign to how my own perspective perceives things, that it seems unhuman. But actually, the way you break it down and talk about it really helps me to open my mind more to that side of things. I still very, very rarely understand it, but it just gives me little bits of knowledge.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, I think it's sad when people strictly try to separate the science from what it means for us in everyday life. That humanization is important. Like the ethics question, for example, that should always come along with the scientific development. You shouldn't just do something because it's fun or because there's lots of money in it. Progress isn't always all good, or at least you should say there are different types of progress.
Yeah, again, it's intention, isn't it? Intention behind the progress.
Yeah, and the unintended consequences that you need to repair afterwards.
Which I guess is a good link right there, actually. That question could be our starting point for the next discussion is, the intentions behind creating, again, machines that have consciousness and affect our day-to-day lives, potentially. And one, why we want to do that. And two, should we do that? Three, is it actually worthwhile? And these are things we can discuss, I guess.
Definitely, yeah.
To start with, again, maybe you have other ideas, but just
no, I have tons of ideas just in response to the things you're saying, but I better write them down.
There we go.
I'll try to cover them all now.
There we go. Definitely not. So yeah, let's end it now. And that was, thank you for listening to those that have listened, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, join us again next time.
Bye.